this girl is just so studious. She is literally using this WhatsApp group as a journal, making a journal entry. A flight X not selected, selected. But that just speaks. Let's talk about your ADB interview process.
So you need to submit a 7 to 8 page long CV.
7-page CV is a very long. You could be probed on anything and everything. Was there any aspect of your CV where they probed you more on?
Yes, they touched upon.
Was there any case or a problem statement? For an Indian planning to get into policy consulting without an MBA, first question is, could you share the salary bracket for a policy consultant and then a salary bracket for Asian Development Bank? There will be those who might be 21, 25 or 28 who may consider joining GGI, but they have doubt in their mind. What would be your message to someone who is considering whether GGI is for me or not? So welcome Darshita to the Shatakshi show. Very proud that one of my students is now sitting across the table and very excited to know about your journey in public policy and beyond. For those who might not know you, why don't you briefly introduce yourself in your own words? And let's start from the start. Why don't you also give a brief about where were you born? What were the initial few years were like for you? What do your parents do? And then let's take it forward from there.
First of all, at the outset, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to have this conversation. I'm truly honored. I spent my early childhood and did my schooling in Jaipur, Rajasthan. And because of the transferable nature of my father's job in the public sector, I did my schooling across 5 schools in 5 different cities and largely stayed in Jaipur. And in 2017, I moved to Delhi. I did my undergrad in BCom honors from Gargi College, Delhi University. And ever since then, I have had 5 years of experience working with the corporate sector, social impact consulting, and now the multilateral. So after graduation, I had the privilege to start my corporate journey with EY, where I worked in the audit vertical and I performed the statutory audit of the wealth and asset management clients of Luxembourg. And alongside my core role in audit, I also worked with a CSR leader of EY and helped them design and implement employee volunteering initiatives. And that is what motivated me to switch to a role where I can work at the intersection of business and impact. So eventually, I moved to Satwa Consulting, where I worked in the CSR advisory vertical. And I advised the CXOs of corporates, including Tata Group, Hitachi, Brookfield Industries, and help them design their CSR strategy and also manage their CSR portfolio end to end. But then I further wanted to amplify my impact in the impact sector. So I moved to GDI Partners. It's an impact consulting firm based out of Delhi, working with the governments and the philanthropies and executing and designing large-scale programs across sectors from education to agriculture. So I had the chance to work directly with the founder and work on and lead two beautiful projects. One was with the Gates Foundation, where we designed and led their gender equality portfolio. And second was India's first government-based outcome-based financing project, where we worked with Niti Aayog and Michael and Suzanne Dell Foundation on improving the learning outcome of students in aspirational districts of Uttar Pradesh. And recently this year in February, I again switched my job. I moved to Asian Development Bank, where I'm working as a consultant with the Economic Research and Development Impact Department. And our core role is that we collaborate with the multiple national and international organizations and build insights that will support evidence-based policy making across the Asia Pacific. And outside of all my work, I love meeting new people from different walks of background. And that's what I enjoy doing in my free time. And apart from that, I am also a classical dancer. I've learned Kathak for 8 years and I've done my Visharad DA from Bhatkhande Sangeet Vidyapeeth.
Wow, that's some introduction, Darshita. I know you personally, and I can certainly say with a lot of confidence that out of 7,500 lives we have impacted, you are certainly amongst the top 1%. Not only in terms of the professional accolades you have taken, but also I think the kind of human you are also, which is something that I take a lot of pride in because it's not just about helping someone join ADB or consulting, it's also about bringing the best out in people. There is a consistent theme of impact in your career. While you did mention that you were working with CSR clients in audit, Going back, do you think there were other aspects that triggered you to work in impact sector?
Largely, I think the motivation to leave the stable job in finance and audit at EY and switch to Satwa, I think it comes from two reasons. One is personal and the other is professional. Coming to the personal part first, so having grown up in Rajasthan, one of the state in India with the lowest female literacy rate, so I could see the how the society's expectation it limits young girls when it comes to education and career. Though I was fortunate to be born and brought up in a supportive family, but I saw that not everyone had those choices when it comes to building the career. So I thought that this awareness should translate into a responsibility for me where I can work in a role so I get to bridge those social and economic disparities and allow more girls to get into the places where they deserve. And second, when I say the professional aspiration, so I'm not someone who likes to build strategy decks. I love to see the kind of impact my slides are creating on the ground. So I wanted to work at the intersection of strategy and implementation. So I wanted to be in the boardroom meetings with senior leaders, but also interact with the last mile beneficiaries and see what's the reality on ground. And I think that's the beautiful platform social impact consulting firms provide to the young professionals.
Got it. That's very interesting. I also believe that many a times we try to emulate our own parents. So, could you talk to me? What does your mother do if she's a homemaker? Was there any aspect of your parents that subconsciously would have impacted you? And it's okay if they have not impacted. But I genuinely think we're an outcome subconsciously of our parents, the choices we make. So, talk to me about your siblings, if any, your mother.
Sure. So my mother is a homemaker, but she is very aspirational about the higher education because she believes in education is a level playing field, and it depends on a person how you want to make the most out of it. And also my father has been working in the public sector department in
Which
Rajasthan,
department?
in the Panchayati Raj.
Very interesting.
So it's been 27, 28 years of him working, and that also motivated me. But I did not want to take the UPSC route. I wanted to take the corporate route because I felt I can get the same platform and create the same level of large scale impact. And apart from that, my parents also believe in volunteering and community giving. So that's what I think I've seen them doing good deeds every day. So that is also a part of me, has motivated me to do this employee volunteering initiatives or volunteer with the non-profits ever since my school days. And I have a younger brother who is 4 years younger to me, and he is in BITS Pilani. And he is also passionate about building a tech startup which not only caters to the privileged but also to the underprivileged.
Got it. You mentioned UPSC. Was there ever a time that your parents expected you to take the exam?
So again, I would say I was fortunate enough. My parents gave me the platform to just make my own decisions, make just go forward with what I love to do.
Got it.
I need not follow the check boxes what other people are doing. Just go for my passion, what I absolutely love.
Cool. So let's talk about Global Governance Initiative. You joined GGI almost 4 to 3 years ago, right? You were part of EY back then, and I have live seen your journey, and I'm very sure you are going to go to places. What made you join Global Governance Initiative? And I'm not expecting a rosy answer if it is not a rosy answer. And how did it influence your career, if at all it influenced your career? And you can blatantly say that, Shatakshi, there was just petty contribution. That's fine. I will not take offense. I'm just genuinely trying to understand what was the role and what made you join Global Governance Initiative at the stage of life you're in. How old were you? What kind of mental state were you in? So on and so forth.
So you're right. I think it was May 2021 and I was, I think, 21 years old. I was working with EY, my first job. But since it was the first job out of campus and that was the best choice I had in the times of the pandemic, but I knew that second role I chose that should align with my passion, what I want to do in my short term and long term career. So the biggest motivation was because I was exploring different career options and I wanted to build my career in a niche sector. So I thought GGI is the platform where I can learn about different career options from the management to consulting to public policy to product and so on. And second was that I could learn firsthand right from the industry leaders. I remember having a masterclass with Mr. Arun Maira, the former chairman of BCG. And third, I feel that GGI has kind of created in the last 5 to 6 years very kind of kind and collaborative community, and it's on us how we leverage that.
Yeah.
And GGI never spoon feeds the candidates. It's on what you want to make the most out of it. There's so much to learn from the master classes, from the consulting paper you do with your mentor, or from the alumni events, or from just building your network with the right kind of peers. So I felt that I met many people who had been there and done that, and I just understood how they navigated their career path. So which just helped me eventually shortlist at where I want to go.
Got
Because while working in audit, I was pretty clear that audit is not my long-term forte. But I knew that I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew what I don't want to do.
got it. Very beautiful. At an age of 21, if you can start to realize what you don't want to do, it's a superpower because that builds clarity, which is very rare in today's world. Apart from audit, is there something else you realize you don't want to do?
Second, I don't want to work in like kind of a singular, or I would say kind of one long-term project. I like on working on multidisciplinary or the multiple stakeholders, where I get a chance to collaborate with multiple stakeholders from the government to the philanthropy to the private sector,
Got
and see what everyone brings to the table and how can we create a collective impact.
Got
So working with different people, I think that's what excites me.
Let's talk about the power of an MBA. You and I both know that you have not done your MBA till now. And I genuinely believe that the world is changing, the narrative around MBA is changing, especially with the advent of AI, especially in the tech sector where people are realizing that the skills are much more important. Even McKinsey BCGs are not hiring MBAs in the numbers that they used to hire, right? In such a world which is changing, but still large majority of the mass wants to go the traditional route. How have you really navigated your career without an MBA? And most importantly, how did you manage your confidence? People have this faith or wrong belief that once I'll do my MBA, magically everything will fall into place. So, talk to me about your MBA preparation journey if you want to. And how did you navigate your career? Did you ever feel like, oh my God, I'm not an MBA, maybe I'm not getting treated nicely? Because a lot of people have complaints like that. So, let's talk about your experience on MBA and not being on an MBA.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, that's true. I think many people told me that an MBA is a must. You need to check off that box when you apply for the big fours or the big threes or their consulting firms to get your foot inside the door. That's true to some extent, but not true overall, because as you mentioned, that in today's day and age, everything is changing and employers value more of skill sets. So what I feel has worked out for me is just having building long-term relations with people. So right from my time at EY to Satwa to GDI, and not only internally within the organizations, even outside the organizations. So I used to reach out to people. I still reach out on LinkedIn, and I feel if you have the right intent, if you want to have honest conversation, people are right there to help you.
Right.
And second, I would say what most people do is they at the outset in a cold outreach ask for a job. I think that's not the right way. First, I think you should build a mutual relation with the person, understand how they got there where you want to be,
Right.
and see what skill sets you require. And third, I would say it's in today's day and age, some people say it's more of the hard skills. That's true. You need to know the AI, the big tech, and data, and so on. But it's also a blend of soft skills.
Yes.
Having that learner's mindset, that curiosity to learn, and ability to take feedback from your peers and mentors, that helps you go a long way in your career. And I think that's what worked out for me when I think I eventually joined ADB in February this year. So this was, I think, it was a series of intentional career choices and conversations I was having with multiple people within the multilateral over the last 2 to 3 years.
I'm just so proud hearing your answer, Darshita, because this is 2025 and you started your journey with us in 2021. And you're bang on right if you're sitting across the table with me, even after 4 years. You have maintained your relationship very beautifully. And for the audience, I would just like to add something. I'm not sure if you recall, in 2021, we used to have a WhatsApp group because you were a fellow, right? You used to give me updates that I've applied to X place and I've not heard back. And I was like, this girl is just so studious. She is literally using this WhatsApp group as a journal, making a journal entry, applied X, not selected, selected. But that just speaks so much volume, Darshita, about the level of diligence you had. That when you keep on consistently making good quality efforts over a long period of time, things stack up and things do add up. With that, let's talk about how did you land your ADB job. I know the kind of backstory, but would be very helpful for the audience because a lot of young people want to join public policy schools just to land at organizations such as ADB, Asian Development Bank for the audience, or World Bank, right? And most importantly, what skills and set of experiences do you think helped you to instrumentalize and make your shift towards the other side of the table?
Sure, happy to. I think I am very proud of this achievement, and I think I will owe this to all the organizations I've been a part of, from GGI to EY to Satva and to GDI, because of which I was able to land a role at ADB. So first, I'll start that I was having conversations with multiple people in both ADB, World Bank, across different verticals. So I understood what kind of different verticals, horizontals, and practices exist within these organizations, and where my passion and skill sets align, and what kind of opportunities the platforms are there where I could apply. Second, I would say I try to showcase my opportunity, my skill sets in the best possible way. For example, at EY, I gained some art skills in the Excel, tech, and AI. At Satva, I got to see how the CSRs can create a large scale impact working with the non-profits. At GDI, I saw how can the public and private capital working with the government and philanthropy can again create a systemic and large scale impact. So this showcasing that I have worked with diverse stakeholders, so I know the strategy part and also I know the implementation part. So I can combine the big picture thinking with strategy and execution, and that's what multilaterals are trying to do.
Right.
So that I could showcase. And third, I would say, like, I always had a giver's mindset. What I see, I've seen a quite of my few of my juniors. Many people have the taker's mindset. They see what a firm can offer to them. But when I was reaching out to senior people in the organizations, so I also tried to say that I am the best in, maybe say, organizing events, or just making dashboards or XYZ. So I think that really helps. That helps the other person also see that you want to build a mutual relationship and you are genuinely interested in the organization. And I think, as I think many times you have also mentioned that almost 80% of the jobs get filled through the network.
Right.
So I think, apart from ADB, when I was applying for my Satva or the GDI, I had other offers as well. So most of them, I would say 60% of them worked out this way through the conversations and through my network.
Fantastic. I love the part on giving, which is the core of GGI as well. You cannot have a long, sustainable journey because people will be able to see through the mask if you're just acting to give, but not really giving. So I agree to that. And you have been a giver at GGI as well, by leading our employment vertical. I want to double click so that the audience can get little bit more flavor of the networking aspect. I know how I have opened certain doors for myself in my life and career by literally reaching out to people. I also want you to give certain examples, right? Maybe certain examples of rejections also, but certain examples of selection or successful entry as well. Could you give an anecdote or throw some light of how did networking or your community peer group or your support group open certain doors for you?
So I'll share some good examples from my time from EY to Satva to GDI and now at ADB as well. So I feel, first, the onus lies on us to take the first step and reach out to people for help. So when I was at EY, as I mentioned, that audit did not interest me much. So what I used to do is, and it was the times of the pandemic, and I think this globally connected world through MS Teams or the Slack gives us a chance to reach out to anyone across the organization. So I used to reach out to consulting teams at EY, the business consulting, tech consulting, CSR consulting, and so on, and the mid-level managers or the senior level partners. And I used to learn how they navigated their career path and what opportunities are there in their team, what kind of projects they do. So this is, I think, internal networking. This really helped me because this opened up some roles for me at EY as well. And likewise, when I moved to Satwa, so Satwa, I would say, has a very people-centric culture, and so the other impact consulting firms, including GDI. So they just give you a platform to build your relation with multiple internal and external stakeholders. So apart from my CSR vertical, I used to connect with people from the non-profit foundations or the other lead units and see what they are doing. So whenever internal openings came up, I had an option to transfer from a CSR to an other vertical. And likewise, since these impact consulting firms, they don't work in silos. So by that I mean they work with the multiple philanthropies, startups, the corporates, and government, and so on. So not only inside, if you have a good relation with your client, if you add some good value to the project, so you also have opportunity outside as well. So I also had opportunity to work with the CSR clients whom I was advising. And likewise at GDI, I mentioned. So I got a chance to work with the philanthropies, the non-profit, social enterprises, and the government. Not eventually right now because the government and philanthropy have leadership roles. But after a point of time, I think it can open good doors for someone who has worked in this space.
Got it. Fair enough. I want to switch levers and talk about your experience as chief of staff at GGI OCS, for those of you who don't know, which is Office of Career Services, which brings employers. Talk to me about your experience as a chief of staff at OCS. How was that like?
I think the 3 months were very ambiguous, and we were not able to derive tangible results. And I think that's what I love. I love unambiguous things, unstructured things, so we can bring some structure to them. And so I remember we used to try different permutation and combination, reaching out to employers through cold email, cold outreach, and nothing worked for 1.5 months. But after a point of time, we figured out what's the right way.
Right.
So I think me and my team, I think what we learned was that we need to target the right white spaces to be able to solve any problem. For us, the problem was getting right employment partners. And again, I think what we did was that our objective was not to create a placement cell at GGR, just
Right.
to have long-term partners. And eventually, I think some worked out for us really well. Some did not work out. Then I think we took alternative paths. We invited them as the speakers for masterclass. And second, I think what personally and professionally have learned the lesson is never give up. So, and I think if we have reached out to that employer again for second or third time, so I think they have eventually come to come on board with us.
Right. And do you want to talk about your EDB network established?
Sure. I think this was again during, I think in 2022 itself, we were trying to forge a partnership with the ADB, World Bank, and I think because of some bureaucratic and other things involved, that could not be structurally played. But I think they did have some options where I think me and other of my peers and other GGIs could apply for, and I think that was a kind of a long-term relation we could build with these organizations.
Which is always the start with a bureaucratic organization. Let's talk about your ADB interview process. How many rounds? What was asked? What were the technical questions if asked? What were the personal interviews if asked? I'm asking once again. I mean, I can of course imagine them, but I'm thinking of a 20-year-old in Delhi University or at IIT Bombay or maybe at Yale University, right? There is a global standard process. And they are imagining what the world is like. What should I anticipate, right? So, can we briefly cover how many rounds and what was asked?
So again, I would say I think the selection does not come in one way. This was, I think, the second or third time I tried in a span of 2 years. So let's take a step back from the interview. So the first step is submitting your CV and the other questions in the application. That's the most important stage, I would say. So you need to submit a 7 to 8 page long CV. And since you have the option to make such a long CV, so I would say make the most out of it.
Right.
I had laid out in detail and outlined all my projects from EY to Satwa to GDI with all the clients from corporates to government to philanthropy, from my what I had contributed, what I had learned, what impact I had created, and alongside what hard skills and soft skills I have. So and I think that's the most important stage for you to get shortlisted. And alongside that, depending on the role and team we are applying for, there's also an option for us to attach our old ECAs or the competition or other certificates from the undergrad days or anything else. And now coming to the interview part, it again depends on the role in the team one is applying for.
What's your exact role at ADB?
I'm a consultant with economic research and development in talent department.
Go on.
So there are a series of 2 to 3 rounds involved. I think first and second round it's more of a panel interview with the team where they gauge your technical skills and your soft skills as well. So I think there were 4 to 5 members from my ERDR department, and they wanted to know what challenges I had faced at work, how did I navigate those, and likewise what hard skills I have gained across 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
And the final round is usually with a direct.
Was there any case or a problem statement?
Not really.
Did they probe you on certain aspect and they grilled you more around?
I think one needs to be very clear on what you put on CV because
Right.
you need to be able to justify every word.
7-page CV is a very long.
True.
I mean, you could be probed on anything and everything.
True.
Was there any aspect of your CV where they probed you more on?
Yes, they touched upon one of the project at EY, which I think was long back, but fortunately I knew every word of my CV, so I was able to justify and remember what.
So making sure that you can't bluff around your
True.
CV, you can't fake it, you have to be very true. I call this the 5 why or the 5 how bullshit method. So for example, if Darshita is saying something, I will ask her why again. If she hasn't done the work, maybe she'll be able to handle it once. And I'll once again probe why again. Why did you do this? Why did you do X? Why did you do Y? Why did you do Z? If she is bluffing, she will break at first and second why. This is the way you check if someone has really done his or her piece or not. But moving on, let's talk about the third round of interview.
Sure. Just one more thing about the panel interviews. I think they also are a very particular about the hard skills. Where I mean that AI, tech, Python, R, straight up. So I knew intermediate level of this, but not advanced. So what I think one can showcase is a curiosity to learn.
Correct.
And an openness to learn, explore more.
But are you also saying that in terms of hard skills, you quoted that you know Python, R?
I mentioned I was open about it that I know the beginner to intermediate level.
Quote the skills you wrote.
Yes. So
Talk us through the list. What did you write?
I mentioned the Excel, the Python, and R.
Got it. Got it. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were talking about the final round. What was the question in the final round?
So the final round is more of a behavioral interview round where the team lead or the director wants to gauge on how well you fit with the team. And since it's a multicultural team, I have team members across the Asia Pacific from Mongolia to Philippines to Thailand to India and so on. So you need to be able to thrive in a multicultural environment. So having that team player mindset, having that curiosity, have being humble and grounded, and I think that's what they want to gauge.
Certainly. Let's now also give our audience a flavor of the kind of work you do within the context of privacy and confidentiality that you will be under. Once again, let's talk to someone who is a 20-year-old trying to figure out whether I should work in United Nations, ADB, or should I join, let's say, Google, right? The world is my oyster. So give a flavor of the day in your life at ADB.
Sure. I think it's been a very good learning curve over the past 4 to 5 months I've been in the organization. So, and I think it's a very steep learning curve for the young professionals. So, I'm working on a range of 5 to 7 projects.
At one point of time.
Yes.
Wow.
And I would say these fall under 2 categories. Some are hardcore economic research projects and some are client-facing projects. So, coming to the hardcore economic research projects. So, for example, we are building the multi-regional input-output tables for 72 economies across the Asia Pacific to see how the flow of goods and services is adding value to GDP.
Talk to the audience about input output tables. You and I might understand them. They will not. So break it down.
Sure. So, for example, so the smartphones sold from Vietnam to US, how much value they are creating to US GDP and to Vietnam GDP. Likewise, the automobiles being manufactured in Thailand and being sold to Singapore, how much value they are creating to Thailand and Singapore GDP. So that we deconstruct while creating input-output tables across the 72 economies in Asia Pacific. It's a very hard and complex process and it's going on since ages at ADB. So I would say these are hardcore research projects and one gets to learn more along the way. So I've been working for a few economies, for example, the Vietnam and the Thailand. And coming to the second part, the client-facing projects, again, our clients are the governments, ministries, and private sector as well. So private sector, it's one of the leading Southeast Asia's fintech client, where they have made a peer lending platform where the MSMEs can lend and borrow loans. So we are trying to understand how much that lending and borrowing activity among the MSMEs is creating value to GDP across Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia.
Got it. Very interesting work. I also want to kind of complete the loop on input output table, right? For a beginner, what would happen if you do not do that input output calculation? How would the world change?
I would say the world relies on data today. So in the world of the tariffs, taxes, everything being imposed. So we need to be on top of things and see how much what is the value added. And because of the different transactions happening across multiple economies, so we need to ascertain the monetary value. But if we do not have the data or the figures or points, it's very difficult to ascertain which economies are thriving, which are not thriving, and so on.
Fantastic response. Maybe to add a contemporary information with what Donald Trump has done with India on tariffs. If you do not know what percentage GDP is the Indian import towards US contributing, then you will never be able to do the sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis is if you have a tariff of 26 percentage for India, how will that impact the Indian GDP? And how will that impact the US GDP? Though Trump doesn't give a dime about Indian GDP. Seems like he doesn't care about the US GDP also. But coming back, let's talk about challenging moments in your life. Someone might look at you, oh, she seems like to be going places, right? But people do not understand the hardships behind the doors. I'm not necessarily looking for professional setback. Maybe I'm looking to hear something that changed your heart, maybe changed your soul, if at all it did. Uh, but something that was really a good judge of your character, of your values. If there is any story that you may want to share, which you're comfortable sharing.
Sure, maybe I'll share two examples, one from the personal and one from the professional front. So, as I mentioned, I have the privilege to be grown up in a supportive and a progressive family. And I think in 11th and 12th, I studied hard and I wanted to get into a good DU college. And I did get into one of the top 10 colleges. But eventually, during my board exams and at the time of admission, there were some personal and family circumstances from the health and family point of view, which kind of made me difficult to focus on my studies or get admission and navigate the logistics. But what I think my parents have taught me, and I think to never give up and just step outside your comfort zone and have the courage to build your own career. So I think I did few things on my own and did reach out to few people who could help. So that eventually worked out. And likewise, I feel I've carried the same mindset while navigating and fetching jobs. So as a few minutes ago, we were talking that MBA is a must for certain set of jobs. So for me also, while switching jobs, I think some people say that's a non-negotiable. But in today's day and age, if you have the right network, right skill sets, so and I think that can open right doors for you. So I think just fighting and navigating for that right role, and so it takes a more of an effort, but it's not doable. It's certainly doable. It will just take more steps for you to get there.
Correct. Which is also, when we talk of steps, right? The reason, Darshita, I like your journey is not because you're working at ADB and going places, it's because you didn't go from EY to ADB directly. And some stories may look like success stories, but they're very hard to emulate, right? Too good to be true. Real life is as messy and as stepwise as yours, right? You go to EY, then Satwa, GDI, or could be an equivalent organization like Samagra or Talbot. Uh, let's talk about now GGI. There will be those who might be 21, 25, or 28 who may consider joining GGI, but they have doubt in their mind or anxiety in their heart. Is this going to be worth it, right? And once again, I'm not looking for a polished answer. But what would be your message to someone who is considering whether GGI is for me or not? So, what would be your response for that?
First, I always feel is that destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of the choices we make in life, and that makes all the difference. So I would say when applying for GGS, so don't think if you are qualified or not qualified enough. Even when I myself have applied, I did not have a pedigree or an MBA or a master's, or I did not have the consulting or the policy background, but I just had that willingness to learn and explore more and meet the right kind of people and build my network. So first I would say if you have the hunger to learn, And second, if you are kind and helpful enough that you want to learn from your peers and likewise contribute, then definitely join. And third, I would say that GJ will provide you the platform and the opportunities. It's on you how you want to make the most out of it. You want to just attend the master classes and go away, or you want to just take the initiative, take the effort to reach out to your peers, to reach out to the industry leader who took the master class. Likewise, do the consulting paper, take the lead to be a group leader in that. Or as an alum, you want to give back and organize events. And fourth, you want to help your peers and give back. Fifth, maybe you want to reach out to an organization who is hiring at GJ and you know someone out there. So I would say our network is a net worth in today's day and age. So just build the right kind of community and right kind of people who are always there to guide you, mentor you, and I think that will take you places.
Very beautifully said. I'll double click on one thing. If you are ever on GJI application form, there is a question we have. How can you give back to the GJI community? We are not looking for parasites, people who are always in the gaining mindset, right? We're always in the giving mindset. And I think, especially in the ecosystem that we grow up in India, oh, what will IIT give me? What will IM give me? We want to change that mindset that, hey, how can I give back to GJI community, right? When you have that giving back as a mindset, then and only then you can start in actual giving back. I say this to a 20-year-old at GJ that just because you have not worked, you have an internship, it's not that you can't give back. Maybe you have taken fantastic notes that a 28-year-old has not taken. You can share your notes, and that's how the cycle of life begins. Let's talk about the salary bracket also. For an Indian planning to get into policy consulting without an MBA, first question is, could you share the salary bracket for a policy consultant? And then a salary bracket for Asian Development Bank.
So I would say the policy consulting, it again depends on the kind of firm we are targeting, either a big three or a big four or a boutique consulting firm or an MSME. So for example, MSMEs or boutique consulting firms might not be able to offer much, but the range starts from 7 to 8 and goes as high as 25 to 30 depending on the experience, the skill sets a person brings.
This is pre MBA.
The good thing about the boutique consulting firms or the MSMEs, they don't differentiate between you having an MBA or not an MBA. So they value more of the skill.
So we are saying depending upon your skills and years of relevant work experience between 8 to 24. This is for policy consulting firms. Let's talk about ADB.
Sure. ADB, again, I would say it depends on the role, the vertical, and secondly, the kind of the prior background and experience one's bring. So it again starts from, I would say, 14 to 15, and it goes as high as 35 to 40, depending on the number of years of experience, the quality of experience you bring to the table.
Got it. Beautiful. With that, Darshita, we come to the last question. If you were to sum up your journey till now, and by journey, I do not just mean your career journey, everything, right? Your upskilling journey, your networking journey, your career journey. How will you want to define your journey in 1 to 2 sentences only, or 1 to 2 words? You can take your time and choose. And what would those 2 sentences and 2 words be?
Sure. So I'll sum up in 2 to 3 sentences.
Okay.
Sure. So first, I would say that nobody has it all figured out. I've met many people from junior to senior to the partner level. So I think my best of the things in my career have happened because I took the leap of faith and stepped outside of my comfort zone. And second, I would say clarity comes from doing. So rather than thinking, I think once we execute things, sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not. But we do gain the skill sets, perspective, or the experiences. And third, I would say the hard skills can be gained along the way. It's on the job learning, whichever firm you want to work in. But it's the long term relationships you build with the people that helps you a lot in your career and your personal journey.
I would want to wrap up this conversation, and a beautiful conversation, Darshita, by saying that we all are unique. We all have unique hearts and unique minds. And yet I feel and fear, and I've been guilty to that as well, that we keep doing things what others are doing. I take so much pride that you're figuring yourself out. I think the biggest disservice to this life is when we live a life that someone else lived. Taking time to figure out what you want to do in this life, what motivates you, what brings joy, And I think one secret sauce of doing that, this is how I've learned. Imagine doing something that you will not share on Instagram and LinkedIn. Would you still do it? Would you want to do it? Is it worthy to do it? If you don't get excited by it, then you should not do it. If you still think that drives you, you should certainly go ahead and do it. Dashita, thank you so much for your time. It's such a pleasure to meet you in person. And thank you for continuing to give back to GGI. I mean it. I'm very sure a woman like you is going to go to places. I'm rooting for you and cheering for your success. And I wish you all the best.
Likewise, thank you so much. It was a lovely conversation and chatting with you today.